Hi guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be drawing the Nameless puppet from the Lies of P video game. In case you're just here for the drawing and not a gamer, I'll give you a little rundown on what exactly Lies of P is. It is a soulslike game, or action-adventure type game that takes place in the Pinocchio universe, loosely related. It's a very unforgiving, challenging game that rewards some smart gameplay with how you approach the creatures that you fight. I really thought it was quite an excellent game, and it improved upon a lot of the Souls formula that we've come to know. I really like that both dodging and parrying are given some pretty equal weight. Obviously the parrying, they push a little bit more, but in general you can sort of play your way. It has some really neat weapon customization so that again you can play your way. And overall the story was just a lot more cohesive than you get out of most Souls-likes. And I really enjoyed that as a person that kind of craves good story. That's not to say that From Software games don't have good story, but you largely invent the story based on exactly how much you find out, as well as your own experiences with it. I started with the graphite undersketch, and I got a little bit of ways in this time as opposed to starting straight from the beginning. That way you guys will have a more complete picture of what we're doing here for the next 20 minutes or so. As a refresher, in my last video I drew a Silent Hill 2 nurse, and this is the completed version of that. I might do some sort of foggy-like background where I brush in with the white charcoal powder some fog or mist, but I'm pretty much done on the nurse itself. It was a fun drawing. I think this one should be quite a bit of fun too. It has a little more going on and will hopefully allow for some more flexibility, because the Nameless puppet is a pretty unique character. It's a biomechanical creature that has some fleshy bits as well as some mechanical components that I think will make it fun to draw. I like drawing biomechanical or cyborgish creatures. Overall, I just thought the Lies of P video game was really good. I haven't enjoyed a Souls-like in a long time at the same rate that I did with this one. And I think a lot of that has to do with just the reinterpretation of the Pinocchio tale that we've come to know through Disney or whatever else. Some spoilers will be here, of course, since we're going to talk a little bit about the story and what exactly went down throughout the campaign. So if you want to just mute this or preserve an element of surprise for you, then I encourage you to do that and just watch along as I draw. But as of a couple weeks ago, the DLC was announced, and that's something I'm really looking forward to. It kind of encouraged me to hop back into the game, and so that's what I've been doing. For my build in the game, I ran a motivity build, which I don't generally run strength-based builds, but it just seemed kind of fun to hoist around giant weapons in this game with my mechanical puppet arms. I created my own weapon. I didn't go with any of the boss weapons or pre-done attachments, and so I spent a lot of time in the little practice area just seeing what weapon attacks and speeds I liked. And so I used I think exploding pickaxe handle, and then I attached it to, I can't remember the name right now, because I've sort of moved on from it. But for my first playthrough, I did that, and I attached it to a large kind of axe blade that has mannequin hands affixing it to the mount. And I really liked it. It had enough speed, but really what it had was reach on it. And some of the bosses in this game, as you parry, you kind of take blows and lose your positioning that you had set up. And so I felt like I needed a longer weapon just to recover some of that ground that I had given up whilst parrying. And so in the beginning I was often pretty frustrated by the game mechanic, because I just thought, like, I lost so much ground parrying and getting bumped back that I can't even counter by the time the attack is over, because the attacks are pretty long-winded in Lies of P. You're meant to learn their patterns and really deal with it on a mechanical level. So anyways, I chose a big, oversized weapon, largely for the reach. And I think it was a pretty good idea. Because when I faced the Nameless Puppet, who a lot of people would say was the toughest in the game, for me, Laxasia was. The Nameless Puppet, whether I got lucky or who knows, just the weapon was a nice counter for him. I happened to beat him in like 2 or 3 tries, and I thought it was a really fun fight. He was fast, strong, filled with rage. Geppetto in the game is not a nice character. He's not good at all. The game sort of relies on us anticipating him to be a good character based on our affinity we might naturally have for him, having watched Pinocchio when we were younger, or just he is the father-like figure in the game, and we just anticipate those people are going to be good, but he certainly was not. He was a really terrible character. And so he unleashes the Nameless Puppet on us if we choose not to give Geppetto, our playable character's heart, which has now taken on sort of the sentience of his son who he lost. Losing his son, which his son died, Carlo, died at the opera house, I think, with Romeo as well as a whole bunch of classmates. And the reason that Carlo was even there was because Geppetto had sent him away. He'd become obsessed with this mineral that was found in the city of Krat, where the game takes place, called Ergo. And Ergo is a mineral that has special properties in that it effectively houses the souls of the dead. And so, upon losing his son in this somewhat of a mysterious thing at the opera house, he decided he needed to study Ergo so he could rejuvenate his son and put it in a puppet. He created a mechanical heart, and his first iteration of that is the Nameless Puppet. And he largely considered the Nameless Puppet to be a failure upon waking it. It was full of rage, frenzy, just fueled by anger and pain. And he deemed this to be a failure. Not at all what his son Carlo was. However, we do know based off some of the game lore that Carlo was indeed furious at his father. He did not want to be sent away to the boarding school at the opera house. And he just overall harbored a lot of resentment for his dad, who had abandoned him in pursuit of knowledge surrounding the Ergo. Geppetto belonged to a group called the Alchemists, and by studying this Ergo, it converted into a kind of fuel, maybe like what we would think of as a reactor, something akin to that, that led to the advent of puppets, which in the society of Krat, we would probably attribute it much to the birth of AI. And these artificial beings serve purposes in society, and at some point they started becoming self-aware and even possessing seemingly the personalities and spirits of people who had either passed away or who knows. But this led to some sort of problems. And over the course of the game we find out that a lot of people were actually aware of these puppets becoming self-aware. Geppetto himself had developed a system of codes and imprinted them on the puppets so that they could be maintained and kept under control, sort of bylaws. Similar in concept, obviously, to an Isaac Asimov Foundation sort of scenario, except he had programmed in a secret code, Law Zero, which was that they were all to abide by the creator, which was him. At a certain point, after losing his son, he had gone mad with the concept of bringing him back. And in order to do this, he needed to harvest more ergo. And so he ordered the puppets to start killing humans so that their souls would be placed in this material. Hence the puppet frenzy that broke out in Krot. And that's sort of where we come in as the player. We wake up to the midst of frenzy. And we end up coming across a fellow named the Mad Donkey, who is trying to break into Geppetto's little trailer. And he seems mad to us. He seems insane, and like there's no way he could be right about the things he's saying in regards to Geppetto. That it was his fault and that he had done this to Krot. And it turns out he's pretty much right. We kill him, we dispatch him. He's our first human-like foe, and our first human that as a puppet we kill. I think the game does a really good job enforcing the idea that one of the core components of being human is the fact that we lie. And in order for our puppet to move closer to humanity, he's going to have to lie about the things he's done. And so I think that's a really interesting concept to push. Obviously, this concept is pushed by The Adventures of Pinocchio itself, written by, I'm probably going to butcher how I say his name, I've never heard it said aloud, but Carlo Collodi, which that's actually the author's pen name. His real name was Carlo Lorenzini, which Lorenzini is a character in the game as well, much like our own Carlo is a character. And Lorenzini in the game, he kind of has the game has a lot of these references that I think are really cool, but he kind of has a Bruce Wayne, Batman-esque origin story. In the game he plays sort of the Da Vinci-like inventor who really finds a way to process and build all these robots, which for a time are very helpful to society in Krot and their way of living. It pushed them forward into a sort of industrial boom that obviously is helpful in some respects. Having said that, at a certain point some robots started to become puppets, and not robots, they're puppets, started to become self-aware. And one of them was a robot by the name of Arlecchino, who wanted to become a serial killer. And he was so mad at the way humanity treated puppets that he sought out to kill humans. And I can't remember if this is by accident or coincidence or what, but he ends up crossing paths with young Lorenzini and his parents who are leaving, I think, an opera house or a show or something. They're just walking down an alley, a la the Batman sort of scenario we just talked about. And he murders them. And he leaves Lorenzini, boy at the time, to prove that he had free will to himself. This was not really known in Krot, that the puppets were becoming aware, and it wasn't known that a puppet killed Lorenzini's parents. But it was happening. So yeah, I thought that was pretty much possibly a nod or homage to Bruce Wayne. Arlecchino is a person that comes up in our campaign as well. He actually is the person on the phone giving us riddles, which will allow us to sort of do the side quests that unlock some doors in certain areas of the game to get equipment or things of that nature. Now, as for the Nameless puppet, again, we were saying that he was Geppetto's first attempt at bringing back his dead son, Carlo. And I think that's kind of interesting, because that would effectively make him indeed Carlo, and he sort of deemed him not to be Carlo due to what he believed was misplaced rage. And I think upon playing the story and reading some of that stuff, we come to understand that Carlo is indeed rageful towards his father. Now, when we do fight the Nameless puppet, and you do defeat him, this is really only possible because Geppetto jumps in front of the final killing blow that the puppet would deliver to us, and thus allows our character to get back to his feet and rip out the mechanical heart that is in the Nameless puppet. I found a lot of the side stories in the game to be really good. I thought the story with Romeo was very sad and moving. Their friendship, our encounter with him later in the game, and then our slow realization of what was happening and what we've done. And I would hope that would move most people. The Nameless puppet has this kind of interesting triangular symbol embossed on his forehead, which is really blood in the game, but it holds and stays in such a way that it feels more intentional. So it's kind of a challenge to give the shape of the nose with a little contrast, or even up here on the forehead. Like, so I'm trying to come up with, blood often catches these interesting dotted highlights, where the high spots of blood or bubbles kind of sit. I didn't spend too much time on this underdrawing. I just kind of, there's a few ways to draw a head. There's the Loomis method, which is a circle, which you then cut in half, and then you add that onto the bottom, and that's sort of the length of the jaw, or underneath the eyes, mid-nose area. So you draw a circle in half, and then the bottom of it would be your eye line. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Half of it would be the eye line, then the bottom half of the circle would be nose, and then the circle's half would be the jaw. But I don't tend to do that. I kind of just draw what I call it, or what's called like the cross. So I draw whatever length I want from my head, and then I just kind of visually look for a third of the way down on that line, and that's my eye line, and then the nose, it's kind of same deal, and then jaw. And this is a little longer because I wanted his head or mouth to be open and wanted this kind of dynamic pose. So his head he's turned back, and look at this. This should be his back here. I'm gonna add sort of a mangled, bizarre ear that is not anatomically correct to humans, but nothing's really anatomically too correct on the Nameless puppet. Again, he is, I believe, the fleshy bits come from the real deceased Carlo, and he's been infused with metal to try and make up Geppetto's first attempt at a real boy. That's a pretty horrific looking effort, if we're being honest. But that's why we're drawing it, because I really like that sort of stuff. I like bad or dark takes on things. Ears are always kind of fun to draw. You have some complex little shapes, and you need to sort of employ some cylinder shading on the edges of the ears, and I probably made his ear a little too low, so I might just do that. And again, I'm not even too concerned about it. He's sort of a mangled puppet, so if I'm actually trying to capture someone's likeness or whatnot, then I use a few different methods to measure out the face and try and make sure things are anatomically correct. But with creatures, again, you can kind of, sometimes these things that are a little off end up adding to the creature design as opposed to taking away. In general, much like my Silent Hill 2 nurse drawing, I tend to try and add a little bit of humanity again, because I think for me personally that makes things a little creepier. And so for the Nameless puppet, I really just wanted to bring in the idea of how much flesh he still had on his face, so we're kind of making it stringy and pulling apart even more so than it's done in game. I also drew in some teeth and gums here in a couple spots, and I'm really debating, maybe I'll just try one, really debating if it'll be horrific or just look goofy. Sometimes things like that can look a little goofy. And so I was going to draw them kind of kittywampus and at a square. The good thing about using the white is that if you don't like it, it's pretty easy to get rid of and just color dark charcoal over and cover up your mistake. So it needs to be more inset in there, that's for sure. It needs to look like it's behind. I might leave it for now. Decide if I like the idea or not. I'll add a little bit of gum here too to give the impression that these bands of flesh are stretching over kind of mangled mouth. Now these are going to need to be probably some of the brightest parts on the drawing, just to draw in some measure of interest to them. Everything else can be a little darker. But there's a lot of cool designs in Lies of P. Like I said, I really like Laxasia. In general, there's some deity stuff going on, and Arm of Gods, and some gods on Earth. And I think they do a really cool job making them both beautiful and horrifying at the same time. I mean, Simon Manus at the end is a really cool concept. He's sort of our mad scientist that's gone too far, much like Geppetto, but maybe even more deranged. And when you get to his second phase, he pulls off his coat where his hunchback was, and he's basically has a shell on his back from which a god awakens and becomes the missing arm. And I just thought that was really cool the way that was done. In the Nameless puppet fight, the second phase, he gets his head cut off, about here, just straight lopped off, and inside of it we see some nice shiny clockwork. And I really wanted to do that, but I didn't want to again lose that humanity that I think is so fun to draw. So instead I lopped his head off on the side over here, so I will do some shiny clockwork in this area. And since this shadow actually is blood, I'm going to carry this really dark charcoal down further as if it's running down his face. And so when you think about how fluid runs down, we need to be kind of careful on making sure that we have it following contours in the face. I think this will be one that would be really fun to digitally paint and colorize. You guys can kind of see examples of that if you check out my shorts where I do take my charcoal drawings and take them into Adobe Photoshop or Fresco and colorize them. It's a fun process that sometimes is a bit tedious because it's not the easiest to color theory on a black paper. It's a lot of guesswork and going back and forth. I don't think it'd be fun to really film for you guys as I struggle to come up with a concrete plan of attack every time and just finally think something starts to look like it's working. In general, I start going with it. My goal for this area was just to show a sort of scar tissued up eye area socket, and this is one of those things that I generally stand up from and check out from afar, or even look at through a camera. It's really helpful to look at your drawings through a camera to figure out if it kind of looks right tonally, if the effect you're going for is working. I'm not going to do that right now so I can keep filming, but I think it sort of looks like the beginning of scar tissue. Alright guys, well I think that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, maybe learned a thing or two about drawing or the Nameless puppet along the way, or just any of the Lies of P stuff. I think for the next video I'll probably end up, I have a lot of choices. I have a lot of things that I want to draw and I've meant to draw. Could be something Dead Space related. That was my first thought. I bought the Dead Space concept art book and I've been looking through that. And I was also thinking about drawing something from a game series that really inspired me when I was younger, and I just loved, which was Twisted Metal. There's some cool character designs in that. It would be fun to draw. So, who knows what I'll end up doing, but I'll be posting a time lapse of the nurse on my shorts. Same with this when it's finished. So, thanks for watching. Make sure you comment what you might like to see drawn next. Like, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. Alright, thanks. Catch you next time.